Hello and welcome back to another episode. Thank you so much for joining first and foremost. That means a lot to me, genuinely. But if you've been following along here on the YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you are, you know that I've been interviewing 50 real estate agents in 2022, literally one person from every state. In California's case, we had to make an exception. It's a big state. We had North and South covered, but we got Canadian agents as well joining us here. So if you are new to this, please hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you turn on the bell notifications. We've got vlogs. We've got the home renovations going on. We got Porsche stuff. Literally your one-stop shop for everything real estate here in Atlanta, as well as cars and home updates and so on and so forth. And every once in a while, we bring in an agent that I'm absolutely a huge fan of. And today is absolutely no exception to that. So let's get right into it. And we're live. No, sorry. I had to take your tagline there from your podcast. But Ray, thank you first and foremost for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are, and I know in the moment you're in the middle of some 75 hard, as well as 3 or 4 talks a day or something. So you got a lot going on. But I appreciate you taking the time today to come into the audience here real quick and chat with us real quick about real estate, about you, about your background, about everything that you have going on now, as well as where you're headed in the future. So for those people that do not know, one half of the Bearded Men of Real Estate.
That's right.
Please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you do. Why do people select your team?
Oh, that's good. Wow. Great questions. First off, I think we need to up our intro because that was a very bougie intro. And all we do is be like, "Oh, we're live." That's our intro. So we may have to add a button. We may have to do something that says "Hey, this is who we are." No, my name is Ray Ellen. I am in Arkansas. I've been a real estate agent since 2007. I got started in real estate in 2006 as an assistant. In that time, we've seen a lot of changes in the real estate market. We've seen a lot of things go up and down and sideways, and so it puts me in a unique position to have a show that talks about what's going on in the market. So I also have a podcast. It used to be called the Bearded Men of Real Estate Show, and we focus grouped it. I put it in front of a bunch of agents, and they were like, I don't know what that show would be about. So we changed the show. We changed the show name to This Week in Real Estate, hosted by the Bearded Men of Real Estate. And so we do that every week, every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Central. We do that live on Facebook, YouTube, and also on Clubhouse. So we broadcast all that stuff live. It's fun. It's good fun. Listen, you asked why people pick me. Man, I think, we've been focused on marketing and media for years. I guess since 2014 to 15. I think I did my first listing video. I may have been the first real estate agent in Arkansas to do a listing video. And it was with my cell phone, just holding it like this because I couldn't afford a tripod nor a videographer. So we've been focused on media and marketing, and a lot of people pick us for the flashy front end. But I'll tell you, I think our real differentiator is something that everyone can do. And it's the processes and systems on the back end that make it smooth for the client. Mm. And that's the stuff that, working with thousands of clients over time, you develop a pretty smooth contract to close system. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the real differentiators, just an enjoyable home buying and selling process. That's what we try to do. Let's make it fun.
Well, and I love what you guys talk about in your show, not just because it's relevant, it's what's happening in the moment and in the market of real estate itself, but also your approach to things, I think, is very, very different than what most people, I think, expect from a real estate agent. And honestly, social proof, is huge in our business, obviously, because people are following us on Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and all these other platforms where they're obviously being attracted to a certain type of content. But I love that you kind of started out with the value first, because to me, that's where the rubber really meets the road. When you constantly pour that time and energy and effort out, I think it really starts to add up. And I know you guys have seen some unbelievable success. So talk to us a little bit more about the podcast, about how did it start? Where did you guys get the idea? Was it always what it is today? Did it I mean, obviously the name was an evolution even, but talk to us a little bit about, where it started, where it is now today, and ultimately where do you guys see that going? And also, probably more importantly, for at least the other agents here, have you actually transacted business as a result of it?
Oh, that's a good question. So first, if anyone is thinking about starting a podcast in order to increase your business, I would probably deter you from it. Because that's a lot. That's like there's other things that you could do and spend the same amount of time doing and probably get better results as far as contracts and closings and clients. However, if you want to start a podcast because you feel like there's some type of value that you want to give back to the marketplace, there's a perspective you have, there's something that you want to say that's not being said, or there's a story that you want to tell, then start a podcast and make that your passion. Don't start the podcast to try to get clients from it. For us, have we gotten clients from it? Yeah. I mean, I've gotten a lot of referral from around the country, so that's been great. But that was never the reason that we started.
Right.
Dan and I met in I guess you could call it a meme type group, which is that surprising. Yeah. It was a real estate group that was just kind of like, it was doing all kinds of memes and stuff like that. It was funny. And I think the first time I saw him post, I was like, hey, has anyone told you you look like that guy on Game of Thrones, like the redhead beard guy? And he was like, oh my gosh. Cause that's when it was popular then. He was like all the time. So we started seeing each other post and we had similar takes. And basically our take on things is you mentioned not what's expected from a real estate agent. And I think that's a key distinction. It's also not what's expected from mainstream media. It's probably not what's expected from a buyer or seller, but we try to have a take on things that's just the truth. And it may not be pretty. It may not be comfortable for a real estate agent or a buyer or a seller or a news outlet, but it's the truth. And we think if you talk about the truth, then you can figure out how to deal with the truth in a way that could be beneficial to all parties. But if you ignore the truth and try to gloss over it with a cool script, here's a cool script to get around this common objection you're hearing from a client. Well, that common objection, that means that that's a concern that they have.
Right.
And if you're just worried about a script to get around this because it's in the news headlines, you're not addressing the problem. You're not addressing the concern. And so when they figure out that you don't understand that concern later, now they don't trust you. But if they understand, if they know that you understand what they're talking about, you understand what's happening in the marketplace, and then how to navigate them through that, that's a totally different relationship.
Yeah.
So Dan and I kept sharing these takes, and we would see that we had kind of similar takes, but we're totally opposite as far as like political spectrum goes. And we thought, hey, let's start a podcast and talk about these real estate news stories and get into debates. And, we'll clash heads and stuff like this. And I'll have this point of view and you'll have this point of view. And so, because we're very opposite as far as that goes.
Yeah.
So we started the podcast and it turns out we agree on just about everything, which we always laugh about it because we kind of started it thinking, oh yeah, you'll have a hot take. I'll have a hot take. And then I'll say my hot take and Dan's like, yeah, I agree. I'm like, wait, and so for the first little bit, we were a little bit confused about like, why are we agreeing on so much? And then we kind of figured it out like, oh, we can be from opposite sides of the political spectrum, but if you're for truth, then you're going to have a similar take.
Yeah.
So the show evolved over time to be more like a news analysis show. So we talk about the news, but then we analyze that headline or that article and talk about the reality of what's happening. And oftentimes we're pointing out that, hey, this is clickbaity. Here's what's really happening. And this is what your clients are going to read in the headlines. Here's what's actually happening in the meat of the article. And hopefully our passion is that it gives ammo, it gives something to real estate agents that are just being bombarded with the headlines. We're going to give them more information so that they can then help their clients make a better decision. Because you can't make a decision about just buying and selling one of your largest investments in your entire life based on headlines. Like use a pro. And so that's why we're hoping to give give something to the pros that they can use to be better in the marketplace.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I'm a huge fan of the show, and religiously watch. There is a reminder
You're
in
a
my
contributor. You're a contributor to the show. So we appreciate you showing up every week and saying something.
Well, and it's not always productive. I'll be honest. I'll be the first to admit it's not always
getting better.
Conversation. It's getting much better for sure. No, but I that's what I love the most about it is that, to your point, and I try to reiterate this to agents all the time because a lot of agents in Atlanta are now aware of me only because of my involvement with our association, being head of our YPN here, so on and so forth. So I always get this question though about, and we go deep. I go really, really deep on this conversation because I feel like it's something that a lot of agents, newer agents in particular, coming in, think that you have to talk about. Oh, it's a great time to buy. It's a great time to sell. Well, is it though? Because you don't know that person's financial situation. Right. You don't know their home housing situation. Like you have no idea if they aren't a client, right? And I'm always very, very weary of people that use that as a marketing tactic because, like you said, when we bought our house 11 years ago, it was the very bottom, but there were personal things going on that we decided we were going to go buy a house. If things change tomorrow and we had to sell this house to do it, then that's driven by personal stuff. It's not the market. Like we didn't run out and say, interest rates are in the fours, home prices are as low as they've ever been. We should go buy a house. It was, we're having a baby. We have job changes happening. Personal life is getting in the way here. And that's ultimately what's driving or the motivation behind all that. So I love that you start with that because to me, that's where the real value is. Like the truth will always set you free.
That's right. That's a good quote, Matt.
I appreciate it. So anyway, I'd love to know though, and for those of you that do not know Ray or do not know me, so we got connected on Clubhouse a little over a year ago, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We started out in the real estate networking club. I didn't know Ray from anyone else. All I knew about Ray was that he had a beard and then he had this bright pink background. I really should have changed everything back here to bright pink.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I loved about him, though, was his knowledge of the market, of what was actually happening, of his process. Like it was crystal clear to me from the get that you had those systems and processes in place. And even though they might be going through changes and an evolution as your business grows and changes and you bring on new agents and so on and so forth, that you had things really dialed in. But then the second thing, and probably the thing I appreciate more about you than that, is your levity. Like you add, real estate can be a very serious subject, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like you, I like to add a little bit of levity to things, whether I'm out with clients looking at houses, or sitting at a listing appointment. Like there's just this sense about you that I love and I think is very endearing about you, that you add that kind of funny, but also in the best possible way, that I think I understand why your clients fall in love with you and want to use you guys.
Oh,
I think
thank you.
But in all seriousness, I mean, I think you're a funny guy in general, so that obviously helps. But I think you add, and you're very, very thoughtful about the way that you kind of weave that into the real estate transaction, as well as the way that you market yourself. And I'm sure you guys have seen a ton of growth, not just from Clubhouse, but from the show as well. I think one of the best things that's come out of the show is, the comments and YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else. Where people are dropping their locations, getting to build that referral network. To me, that's one of the coolest things to come out of it, because you find those like-minded people that do want to be on the cutting edge of things, whether it's talking about marketing or the market itself. I love that. So keep it up, please. And I love what you shared earlier about the podcast. Definitely not the fastest way to go.
No, it's really not. But I think, in the whole scheme of things, there are a lot of real estate agents out there that take themselves way too seriously. And they try to create these bougie images on Instagram, and they're the hero of their own life, which everyone wants to be. But then they're trying to be the hero of their client's life too, and it's just very kind of pompous. Mm-hmm. And we really enjoy poking fun of all of that and taking down all of that stuff, because we think authenticity will win out at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And there've been lots of people that have told me, we use this person to purchase a home, and we would like to use you to sell it. And, I'll ask, like, why aren't you using? And they're like, well, it was just really all about that person. It wasn't about us.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be something that really comes back to bite people, because you have the ability with all this technology to build up yourself as a hero. But in the end, if you're not making your clients the hero, if you're not making their system, their process of buying a home and selling a home delightful in every possible way, and focusing on the consumer experience through your own systems and processes, then you're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And so we lovingly poke fun at the industry as a whole in all of those situations. And, hopefully for us, the levity in everything that's happening is just part of having an attitude of gratitude and a mindset that's more positive than negative. And, we deal with some real issues on the show.
Sure.
But we like to deal with those issues and then have like an honest conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually we throw in something that we find humorous about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think, honestly, consumers, to me, it's kind of refreshing, right? Because, if you watch $1 Million Listing, if you watch Selling Sunset, it's like, it's very canned. It's very I feel like the best thing Ryan Serhant ever did was go out on his own and start doing his own stuff, because I felt like then you really got to see who he is and the family man that he, so on and so forth.
Can I be honest with you about those shows?
Sure.
I've probably only seen 5 minutes of those shows. I should do like a Bearded Men of Real Estate Reacts type of bit, because I've heard a lot of them. I've kind of seen like the previews and stuff. But it's just that it's so cringy to me. That's tough. Of course I watched the old HGTV stuff back in the day. Yeah. But I don't consume a lot of the real estate media. Maybe I should. Maybe our show would grow better. Actually knew.
Well, I think it's an important point, though. And again, we're talking to my network here. We're talking to other agents. We're talking to everyone, honestly, because I think there is this kind of misconception that real estate agents are on a level of whatever they are. And, there's enough awards out there for everyone at this point.
Oh, my goodness.
But from the consumer mindset, I think that there is an opportunity for us, just like you mentioned with media now. Like, everyone's talking about, if I could get on this show or if I could create that show, you could. You literally can right now. But you're getting in your own way by saying, I can't.
Yes.
Or I need a bigger platform or whatever else. But anyway, I'm with you. And I think limiting your exposure to that is probably not a bad thing. You might have a whole separate sub show that you could do where you guys go through some of those episodes and go, pause. That's not how it works.
Maybe we'll make it a segment on the show, a Reacts segment.
I love it. Well, so talk to us a little bit about, your past business, kind of how things have evolved and changed. I know agents in particular are probably, I imagine you started out as an individual agent and then started to build a team and so on and so forth, but also, and probably just super selfishly for me, where do you want to go? Like, what does this thing look like 5, 10, 15 years from now for you?
Yeah. So I started as an assistant actually in 2006. I was, taking any job that I could, but I was also kind of weirdly into tech and marketing. And in high school, I used to build websites for small businesses. This is like in 1996 through 2000, right? I was building websites for small businesses in high school. Graduated college in 2004, but I didn't get into real estate until 2006. And I was like, well, I still have this little skill set where I could build some websites and stuff. So I was making individual web pages for real estate listings back before that was a thing.
Wow.
And I was working with 2 companies to bring 360 tours to the state of Arkansas. And this is back when you had to take like individual photos vertically and then stitch them together in a program and then tell that program where the room is. Like, you couldn't do the Matterport thing where it's just like zip done. No, it was a whole thing. And so I was doing that in 2006, and I calculated I was responsible for marketing about 49 million in property. And I thought, wow, my life would be a lot different had I sold that stuff myself. So I got licensed in January of 2007, had an amazing 4 or 5 months. And then the world real estate market totally tanked. It was terrible time. Sorry. I have my soundboard. Might as well use it.
Absolutely.
So the whole market crashed. I hung out in real estate primarily for a little while, but I wound up going into commercial and business brokerage and stuff because the residential market was tanking. Before the crash, none of my friends had money, but they could all buy a house after the crash. Even though my friends with money couldn't buy a house. So it was weird.
Yeah.
I never felt good about that time, but I just kind of struggled through it. Wound up owning a couple of businesses, came back to residential real estate in 2013, moved to Central Arkansas, where I am now. And really, I took like 2.5 years and just said, I'm going to focus on the experience, client experience. And I journaled every transaction. What went wrong? What made this one fantastic? And what made this one a fantastic failure? What could I have said? What could I have done? How could I have negotiated differently? Was my client ultimately happy, or were they just meh about it? Or were they, this sucks, but hey, at least I have a house.
Yeah.
So I journaled all that and try every time I would take that experience and invest it into the next. One of my favorite quotes, and something I come back to often, is something by Jim Rohn. And he says, there's a lot of people in life that'll say I have 10 years of experience, but really what they mean is I have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. So my goal was to take each one of my transactions, each one of those experiences, and invest it into the next. So it's constantly getting better and better and better. And that should exponentially increase my experience to where by the time I was sitting in front of someone in 2015, they thought I'd been a real estate agent for 30 years. They thought, wow, this guy really knows every part of the transaction. He just told us how everything would happen. And it did happen that way. He just told us the type of offers we would get if we priced here versus here. And we got exactly those type of offers for exactly those amounts. This is crazy. How's this guy know this? And it's because of that time period of taking every one of those transactions and experiences with clients and investing into the next. So fast forward to 2015 or so, I decided to put the same efforts into marketing. I am a C on the DISC profile, which is, high analytical guy. I am a CD though. So I have enough D in me to at least get something done. So I said, well, I'm going to put that same model into marketing and see what works. So we started, it was just me, but I started doing putting photos and posts and long form and short form and trying this social media and that social media and doing all this stuff. And that kind of gave us some national recognition because we were doing some interesting things. I was pulling ideas from other industries, putting it into our industry, seeing if it works. And it was working. It was working really well. And so I was learning a lot, kind of putting forth a footprint of how to use video in real estate and what it might look like to be the mayor of your town and what it might look like to do listing videos professionally. And so we were doing all this stuff. And then that's when people were starting to say hey, that's interesting. Could you come tell us about that? And so I got invited to speak at places, and it's just been a whirlwind since then. So that was about the time we started the podcast too. And the podcast has just kind of been the thing that's been steady throughout. And, I was on my walk for the 75 hard thing, which by the way, you said I was in the middle of. I'm done with week 1 as of this morning. I've lost 5 pounds already.
Wow.
Yeah. I still got a lot to go. 5 pounds as a percentage is not much. Okay. So I still got a long ways to go. But anyway, I was on my walk last night. Because it's so freaking hot. I have to walk really late right now. And I was listening to the YouTube formula, which if you're interested, drop a comment, note, connect with me on Instagram, because I think that's going to be the next book we do in the book club. So I have this little book club I do where we'll take a book and just kind of dive into it and get pretty deep into it and start applying those things. I try to get people with expertise into the book club to come and tell us about their experience with it. If they've been an expert in a different part of it. So I already have some people lined up for this YouTube formula book I'm really excited about. That's awesome. Anyway, one of the things they were talking about is common mistakes people make and what the new algorithm's showing. And I'm listening to this in the context of the podcast thinking, wow, there's so much growth opportunity and there's so much change that I have to do to this just from listening to this tonight. And so it's constantly evolving, not only in the podcast, but also in our processes and systems. So even today, I'm taking each experience. We have 3 closings today. Super excited for my team. They're doing a great job. But we're going to take each one of those experiences. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about what we could have done different. The client experience, how was it? Where'd they come from? How'd we convert them? How'd we guide them through that? And I think that's the part that gives us an advantage. That's the part that makes us different, that escalates our service level above anyone else is that we have those things that we're developing from our own experiences that we're not finding in a book, we're not finding on a website. You know, they say that success leaves clues in real estate, like success leaves courses and books, and like there's no excuse not to be successful in real estate, because you could just do what Matt LaMarche is doing and you'll have a lot of success. You could just do what some other agent is doing and you will be successful. But how do you go to the next level?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you have to start doing what no one else is doing.
Right.
But I don't think you can get there until you've at least done the stuff that Matt LaMarche is doing, right? Until you at least have done the stuff that people have come before you and said, try door knocking, try mailers, try cold calls, you know, and that's just on the lead generation side. Well, what if they're under contract? Well, try this system and process for the transaction processing. Try to hire someone for that part of the transaction. Try to get someone there for the inspection to do this for you. So there's all these little things that you can do. And once you've started to do all of that, then the way to level up is you have to be able to learn from your own experience. And so that's our big focus right now, is trying to get to a level that no one else has attained.
I love the journaling idea, because I feel like, I mean, just like video, right? Like if I could go back and watch every single transaction, the emotion, and you and I have talked about this, right? Like trying to be careful about, there's a very fine line between crossing over, especially in the heat of a transaction, the middle of a transaction, crossing over, client privacy, so on and so forth. But also being able to go back, because I love to write. Not many people know that about me, but I love to write. And if I had gone through and journaled, you know, each one of the emotions and what was happening and how I can learn, I think that's brilliant, actually. And I love the fact that you mentioned that, because I think also in retrospect, you do learn, right? And I learned from myself, like life has to teach Matt how to do or not to do something. So I love that you mentioned, I think that's really, really smart. And I think it's, especially if you're a newer agent, that's a great place to start, because what works today isn't going to work tomorrow either. Right. And lead generation and your systems and everything else. And you and I both know that, you know, as you get bigger, as you get more successful, for me at least, you've got two things playing. You've got the market, which is always doing this, right? Yeah. It's up, it's down, it's stable, it's a buyer's market, it's a seller's market. We're in a shift, or we're normalizing, all these different things that are happening. No control over here. But I have all the control over here, where the inputs and the potential outcomes are coming from. And I love what you mentioned the most about getting to that next level, because that's one thing that I've really been looking at over the last 7 months now, is what other systems do I not even have in place that I haven't even thought of? Because the market changing over here that I have no control over, I still have to work with it. I still have to play in this market.
The interesting thing when you analyze these other systems, because a lot of people will put in systems for system's sake. I don't have a system that does this. And they just put this in and they're like, well, that didn't help anybody. I think the biggest thing you can learn through journaling, and I would break up the journal as like a client onboarding, which also talks about the acquisition of the client, where they came from, how you talked to them on the phone, what happened, what was their response like, all that stuff, all the way through onboarding them through the signing of the contract, right? So you have the client acquisition / onboarding. Then you have the property acquisition, right? So if there's buyers, what'd you do to secure the property? How'd that negotiation go, right? Then you have the whole contract to close.
Yeah.
So those are like the three main parts I kind of focus on when I'm looking at my own journaling and experiences and what we're doing. If they're selling, it's the same, basically how you got the clients, but that middle part goes to selling of the property.
Yep.
What'd you do to prepare the property for sale? How'd you sell it with the marketing, all that stuff that you did? Then the contract to close under that. So a lot of people are going to look at the system and say, hey, I'm just going to put this system in place here and hopefully that helps. Well, what problem is it solving?
100%.
And if you don't know what problem that this system is supposed to solve for you, it's just a system you put in place, maybe you shouldn't use it.
Correct.
And a lot of us as agents look at systems as, hey, this will solve my problem with me keeping up with this. This will solve my problem of me doing this. We need to flip that. What system am I putting in place to help my client?
Yep.
So maybe it's something that I'm dropping the ball on. So I'm going to put this system in place so that my client will have better communication, so that my client will see all the paperwork and done, whatever the process or system is, turn it so we're focusing on the client experience, not what's going to be easy for me, the agent, because Zillow is making it easy for them.
100%. 100%. No, you're so right. And I know you and I have also talked about coaching and systems and just keeping ahead of things. And the coach to me is one of those most important differentiators, because that ultimately shows you blind spots in your business that you didn't even know existed, number
Yeah.
one, and then how to deal with them, the systems that you can put in place. And to your point, one of the things that me and my coach discovered was to take me to that next level as far as referrals and getting referrals from past clients. To hire a client care manager made 100% sense.
Yeah.
Right. And so even after the transaction, even 3 years later here, they're being sensitized to the experience,
Yeah.
even though it's been 3 years, even though I haven't seen them in a year. Like, to me, that was a really big opportunity, because the feedback that I got from my clients was, we just want more of your time. Like, we want to go have dinner with you and your wife. We want to go, on vacation with you guys. We want to do this. We want to do that. And it was like, this is a massive opportunity, and we need to build a system around protecting those clients. And
that makes sense to me, though, because you seem like someone that's very caring, compassionate, that has this ability to kind of go beyond the general relationship that most agents have with their client. And that's rare. Like a lot of agents, including me, are more transactional, right? Less emotions based, all that kind of stuff. So I love that idea, especially for you, to find a client care manager that can care on these people as much as you do and can put those things in place so that they don't lose that care throughout that's brilliant.
Yeah. And it's not that I've been removed either, right? It's just, she's getting honest feedback. She's getting real dialogue with some of these people that I could never get because she's her.
Yeah.
And the reports back are all, and I was totally surprised, by the way, because I'm much more transactional up until the end of it. And this is just full transparency. Once we're done, we're done. I'm not that great at the follow-up after the transaction. Like, I want to love on my people. I want to get more referrals. I want a lot of other things, but I couldn't figure out, like, how does Matt go about doing that? Because that's not my first inclination. And I thought, if this person could go out and get real-time feedback from these folks, and the feedback was amazing. And it was like, yeah, we just want more time. Like, I got time. We can do time. I got time all like, we can make that happen. That's actually a lot easier than I think most people think. But anyway, yeah, no, I could not agree more. And I love the idea of journaling like that. That's going to be my spark for today, I think, because going back through and feeling some of those emotions, but also what made it special. Like, there's been some closings, I'm sure this resonates with you, some closings where you're just like, God, this was such a pleasure. Like, I can't believe I get to wake up every day and buy and sell real estate with you. Like, this is exciting. And then there's been others where you're like, just get me out of here.
Yeah. Please, when you close, lose my number. Yeah, we've all had a couple of those. That's fine.
It's inevitable, right?
Nobody's perfect.
That's right. Well, I know you're busy, so we'll let you get back to your day. But before we let you go, Ray, if someone's watching this, if they're an agent, if there's someone here in my network in Atlanta, even if they just stumbled upon this video on YouTube, what is the number one fastest way to get a hold of Ray and his team to help buy, sell, invest in real estate?
It's likely Instagram, actually, which is funny. It's Ray Zorback, RayZorback, because I am from Arkansas. Always have to have one of these close. There you go. I'm from. So got to represent.
That's right.
But that's the best way to get me. If you're a real estate agent, then hit the follow and then send me a message, because I do check the others or whatever. And if you want to connect with any of this stuff or talk about any of it, have any questions, that's great. I do a couple of different masterminds every week that people are more than welcome to join. And then we have the book club. That's the one that I kind of lead. And I think the next one we're doing, I know that the next one we're doing is the YouTube formula. And so we're going to be talking a lot about YouTube. I've got several guests lined up that are experts in YouTube that will be joining us after we cover big sections of the book and kind of go through that together. And we're going to be trying to apply I guess you could say the difference in our book club and others is that as we read it, we really try to apply a lot of that stuff. So I'll be posting more about that with links to sign up and all that jazz. So contact me at Ray Zorback, RayZorback.
Just like it is on the screen, right?
Oh yeah. Right there on the screen.
Perfect. Ray, thanks again, man. I really appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you taking the time today to do this. It means a lot to me, probably more than you know, actually. But genuinely, follow the show. If you guys have not connected with Ray on YouTube and all the other platforms as well, you will not be disappointed. You will definitely not. And you'll also feel like, you know, you've been surrounded by people that genuinely do care about our craft, that are trying to make
That's right.
everyone around them better.
That's right.
So anyway, I really appreciate you. Hope you have a great weekend, my man.
Yeah, man. You too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. If you have not yet subscribed, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and tap the bell for the notifications. Do you have a little sound effect you want to put in there?
Here you go. Follow and subscribe.
I love it. I appreciate you, my man. Thanks again.
Later.
See you guys soon.